Welcome to Afternoon Art Club for 1st through 3rd grade. This is November session 2. Today is November the 19th, and we are going to be finishing up our symmetrical designs that we started last week. So today we're just going to kind of build on what we started talking about last week. Now I'm going to go ahead and share my tabletop with you because I want to do just a really quick review of what we've talked about so far so that we can get right into finishing up this project. So let me see, I'm going to go ahead to my screen sharing. Hopefully I won't have any problems sharing my screen the way that I want to today. Oh, no, it's a little bit weird. Hold on a second. I think I figured out last time how to fix that. So hang tight for me. I'm going to close that up. Hopefully I can get that to share well. We still have a few people coming in, so that's fine. Let me see if I can get my screen to share without skewing on us. Let's try again. Just thinking about it. Okay. Hopefully it works. Yes. Okay. All right. And I'm going to just take a moment and try to get this all zoomed in for us so that we can see clearly and get our focus locked. All right. So welcome to those of you who are just coming in. Please remember that if you have questions, to put those in the chat box, and I will be happy to answer them. And then if you have questions that you can't put in the chat box or you want a little bit more of an explanation, then I will be happy to answer those at the end of our session today when I stop the recording. You'll also notice if you check in your chat box, I dropped this sheet, which we talked about a little bit last time, in the chat box. So if you did not get to download it last time or you did not see it attached to the email last time with the video link, then it's right there in the chat box. You can click on that to save it on your computer. And you can either print that out, or last time we talked about how you could make one of your own. So I want to take a few minutes first and just review what we talked about with symmetry. Last time we talked about that a symmetrical design was a design where you had a shape or some type of image that could be divided right down the center, and it was the same on one side as the other. So it would create a mirror image. So we talked a little bit about that last time. We looked at some examples in the museum's collection. Remember, we looked at that textile design, and we looked at how there was a design that had that you could divide down the center, and it was the same on both sides. So we talked about symmetry last time and looked at examples of it last time. And then we talked about this little worksheet where you could come in and you could draw the other half of the symmetrical shape. And so yours, if you were able to finish it, probably looks something like this. So the rectangle was already given to us. We could draw the other half of the heart, the other half of the triangle, the diamond. So you could keep drawing the other half of all of these shapes to get a symmetrical design. So that was a simple exercise to help you understand symmetry. Now, there are some shapes, if we take a look at this, this worksheet, for example, there are some shapes that have more than one line of symmetry. So for example, grab my ruler here. If I were to draw a line right here, then I would see that the center horizontal line is also a line of symmetry. It's the same on the bottom as it is on the top. But if I were to draw a line just like that on my heart, that is not a line of symmetry because the heart is not the same on the top as on the bottom. So the heart would only have one line of symmetry, and that would be that vertical line. So we talked a lot about this last week, and I'm just going to leave it there. Hopefully you were able to practice on this sheet. If you weren't able to practice on this sheet, I hope you were able to make one yourself. Last time I showed you how you could just take a piece of paper, draw a dotted line, and draw a shape on one half, and then draw the other half on the other side of the line of symmetry to create a symmetrical design. And so I showed you that as well last week. So let's go ahead and skip to what we're going to be doing to finish up our symmetrical designs that we started last week. And I had 3 examples that I showed you last week. Now, the thing to remember on these examples was that we want 2 colors of paper that are very different from each other. And I showed you that and talked a little bit about that last week. So last week we began by preparing our papers. And I'm going to go ahead and show you what we did to prepare our papers. We kept our darker paper, which in this case for me is my black piece of paper. We kept our darker paper here completely whole. Then we took our lighter paper and we either cut it in half the long way like this. So this would be half of this sheet of paper, or we cut it in half the horizontal way with the paper going side to side or horizontally. And either way was fine, but we needed a half sheet of paper in our lighter color. So we started that way. Then on our half sheet of paper last week, we drew a design, and we started out by kind of cutting out the design that we drew. So I drew this flower design. I've got it upside down. Sorry about that. I drew a flower design. I've kept all my little pieces. Remember, I told you it was important to keep all your little pieces and to not cut away the outside. So we needed to keep everything in one piece as we're cutting it. So you can see that I drew my flower shape and I cut apart the pieces, but none of this is trash. I'm going to be using all of the pieces that I cut out here today. And if we switch to the other one that I did, I have these all paper clipped together. If we switch to the other one that I did, I had this one just like this. I drew sort of a squiggly line and I cut that apart. And then I cut out all these little pieces from it. It's tricky to get these back in order. I believe that one goes there and here and here. So that is what I cut out of this one. And see, all of these pieces are going to be pieces that I keep to create my final pattern like this. I don't want to throw away any pieces. All of the pieces are still here. None of them are trash. So, hold on, I've got friends coming in and out. Okay, so what we're going to do now is take our design and we're going to start gluing things down. So if you have yours, you can either do this along with me or you can wait and do this afterward and just watch me. I'm going to start back from the cutting section. I have a couple of other ones that I've gone ahead and cut out just so that it's something that you can kind of watch and follow along with. So we're going to do several of these together. Now, I have a couple of designs that I've created, and I know the blue is a little bit hard to see, but you can see how I've created a design that touches the bottom edge and the top edge here. And this is just a zigzag line. It's not anything special. When I lay it flat, it's harder to see than when I have it tilted. So I tilt that for you. So that's just a zigzag line. And in this one, I made it kind of look like a sunshine, but I put some extra lines in there. So I'm going to start by cutting out this one. So the tools and materials that you're going to need today, if you don't already have them, you're going to need your pieces of paper that you started with last time. Hopefully you've at least drawn a design on your paper, and you may have already cut them out. And if you have, that's fine. Just kind of follow along with me here. And if you haven't, that's also fine. The other thing that you're going to need is a glue stick. I'm going to be using a glue stick. If you got a kit from us, you can use the glue stick that's in your kit. If you did not get a kit from us, you can really use any kind of glue. So a glue stick or white glue, whatever you have around the house is fine. And if you have an eraser, it may come in handy. You can use an eraser on your pencil. All my pencils tend to run out of erasers. I erase a lot. So I like to have just an eraser handy so that I can use that when I need it. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my scissors, and I'm just going to cut out this design that I've drawn. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut out the design I've drawn. Now remember, when you're cutting, and I told you this last week, but please remember, when you're cutting, you don't want to cut any pieces off that are going to get thrown away. No pieces are getting thrown away. So you have to cut really, really carefully on this. I'm cutting right on the lines, and I'm not cutting any pieces away. I'm not cutting any away to throw away. They're all important pieces. So I want to keep both halves that I'm cutting nice and clean. Okay. All right. So now I'm finishing up cutting on this piece, just like that. Okay. And I have two pieces, and they're nice and clean. I didn't cut anything away. Nothing's trashed. They still fit together nicely, just like that. All right. Now I'm going to take the outside piece. This is the outside piece. This is the inside one right here. I'm going to take this outside piece, and I'm going to glue it down. Now, when I glue it down, I want to match the edges. I'm using a pink paper on bottom and a blue paper on top. So I want to match the edges of my pink and blue paper on the top and on the bottom. I don't want it to be sideways or crooked. I want the edges to line up at the top, all down the side, and at the bottom so that they're equal, just like that. I shouldn't be able to see any pink paper peeking out of these edges. So I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to put glue on the back. I'm only putting glue on the back. Okay. Flipping it over, just putting some glue on the back. If you're using white glue from a bottle, be careful not to use too much glue. The good thing about a glue stick is that you can't really use too much the same way you can with white glue. All right, and I'm going to just line up those edges because I don't want to see any pink peeking out. And I'm going to press that down. Okay, just like that. So that's connected. I can still kind of stick this in there to see that it fits up, but this is glued down to the paper. You can see it won't come off my paper anymore. It's nice and glued down. Okay. All right. Now, I could take this blue paper that I have and kind of match it up with where it meets the piece I cut away. And what I'm going to do is just flip it over like that. I'm just going to flip it over and kind of line it up so that the blue touches the blue corner up here and the blue touches the blue corner down here. And you can see it kind of creates a line of symmetry right in the center. That creates a line of symmetry going right down the center. So what I'm going to do is flip it back over so that it matches, just like this. And I'm going to put glue on this side. So when it matches, I'm going to put glue on this side, just like that. And then I'm going to flip it over like this, match it at the top, and match it at the bottom so that all these edges match up like that, and give it a nice press. And now I've created a symmetrical design. I have a nice line of symmetry going right down the center. If we were to divide this in half, get my ruler and show you, if we were to create a line right here, it's the same on the left as it is on the right. The design or the pattern we've made is the same on the left as on the right. So this is a really simple example. Now, if you have any pencil lines left over, it may be kind of hard to see, but I've got a bunch of pencil lines. You can kind of see it right there. I've got some pencil lines there. I can use my eraser to get rid of any pencil lines that are left over from when I drew my design. So I'm just gonna erase a little to get rid of the pencil lines. And that's that. I'm finished with that one. Now I want to show you how we could make this a little bit more complex. So this is a very, very simple example, but something like this one is a little bit more tricky because we're cutting out multiple things. We're not just flipping one part over, we're flipping it over and then flipping over some other parts. So I'm going to show you how to do that if we're flipping over multiple parts and not just one part. In this example, we just cut one piece away and we flipped it over, but we're going to do something a little bit more complex this time. So I'm actually going to set this one to the side and get out this one. So in this example, I've already cut this one out. This is my flower example. I have my background, I've got my flower, and then I have the center of my flower cut out. So I'm always going to start with my background. That's the easiest place to start. So I'm going to take my background, my sort of background of my colored paper. I'm going to flip it over to the back. I'm going to add some glue, just like this. It doesn't have to be beautiful. You don't have to try to get glue on every little part, but I do like to get glue on these parts that stick down so that they'll stick. Okay, and it might be a little tricky for you to see this, but I'll do it like this so you can see. I want my edges to line up just like we did before. So you want your edges to line up at the top, try to match those corners. It's a little tricky once you have glue on your paper. So you gotta don't press it down too hard until you know that your edges line up. Then I'm gonna press this all the way around. Okay, so I've got that glued on, just like that. I have two other pieces here that need to get glued on. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and piece them in here. This helps me just to make sure I'm keeping things straight. So then I'm going to take my flower piece right here and I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to glue it right here. And I'm going to match up the edges, match these 2 points and match these 2 edges just like that. Okay, so I'm going to flip it over and match it so that I have a nice clean line of symmetry right down the center. This little piece I'm going to leave alone for right now. So let's go back here. I know I want to flip it over, so I'm going to put glue on the front side of this, just on the flower part, putting glue on the front side of the flower part, because I'm going to flip that over. This will be the back. Okay, so I'm going to take it. I'm going to flip it over like that. I'm going to match up the corners right there. And match up the corner down here. It's a little tricky to move it if you need to, so don't push down hard until you got it. And then I'm just going to press it down, just like that. Okay, so that's what I have so far. I have both of those pieces glued down. They're not coming up now. I glued down this piece, the outside first, then the flower piece. And now I've got this little piece that fits in the center right there. And I'm going to go ahead and fit it into the center of my flower. But I want to flip that back over the other direction. So I'm going to put glue on it here and then flip it back over. So watch me. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on it like this. And then I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to match the edges. I'm matching up the edges here and matching up the edges there at the bottom right there so that I have a nice line of symmetry right down the center, just like that. And now everything's glued down and it's perfectly symmetrical. If I were to put a line right down the middle, It's the same on the left as on the right. Okay. So then again, you can see I've got some pencil lines here that are kind of messy. So I might want to come in with my eraser at this point and just carefully erase any pencil lines that I can see so that my artwork is nice and clean. I got some eraser dust, but that's okay. Just dust that off like that. And there we go. So now that's two. We've done one really simple one with just one piece. We've done this one, which just had two pieces. It had the flower cutaway and it had the inside cutaway. Let's look at one that's a little bit more complicated than that. So this can be really simple or it can be really tricky. So let's take a look at this one right here. This one I have my outside piece. I have this inside squiggly, and then I have all these other little kind of semicircles that I cut out. So I'm going to start out the same way as I have with all my other ones. I'm going to glue down the outside to start with. So I'm just going to slide these out of the way, flip this over so it's the back is facing up. I'm going to add some glue. And I'm going to glue down the outside here. And remember, I want to match up all my edges. So my yellow and my purple should line up the top. It should line up all down the edge here. And it should line up at the bottom. And if it doesn't quite line up, then you need to do some adjusting. So I didn't quite line up right there. You can see that. I'm going to try to lift it carefully and adjust it a little bit, and that works better. And then once I kind of get it, I can get it pressed down so that it's stuck. Okay. Now, I've got all these little pieces that I'm going to add eventually. Just going to set them over here. So now I have this squiggly piece right here. I'm actually going to get these little pieces out of the way for right this minute, because they're just confusing. Okay, so my next piece, my second piece, is the squiggly that I have right there. And just like my other ones, when I get my second piece, I'm going to flip it over just like that. So I want to put glue on this side of it carefully. I want to try not, I got a little bit of glue on my outside paper, but it'll dry clear, so that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to leave it alone and let it dry. If you get a little glue where it shouldn't be, just let it dry. Most purple glue sticks dry clear, so it won't be a big deal. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to match up this corner with this corner, get it positioned. Do the same thing at the bottom. Match up this corner with that one. Get it positioned nice and straight. Get everything positioned straight. And then press everything down. Just like that. Okay, now both of those pieces are attached. And now I've got all of these little guys still to attach. There's all these little tiny pieces that I've cut out. And I want to go ahead and match them up where they go. So I like to stick them in there so I know where they go. I'm doing that first. Just like that. So with each and every one of them, I'm going to put glue on this side, and then I'm going to flip it over. So I'm going to put glue on this side, like that. And then I'm going to flip it over and match the edges. See, I'm just matching the edges, the edge at the top and the corner at the bottom. Match them up, push it down. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Put the glue on it, just like that. Flip it over and match my edges. I'm going to take this one, put glue on it, flip it over, and match my edges. Next one, this one right here, put some glue on it, flip it over, and match my edges. And my last one, put a little glue on it, flip it over, and match up my edges. And now I have a pattern that if I were to divide it in half right down the center, just like that, it would be the same on the left as it is on the right. Okay, so same on the left as it is on the right. And that's our goal. Now, this can be as complicated as you want it to be. It can be very, very simple, and you just cut out a couple of basic shapes. Or it could be a little bit more complicated, like this one that I just made. Or, for example, this sunshine one that I have not yet finished. I'll do this last one with you guys today so that you can kind of see exactly what you can do. This one has lots and lots of edges. So if you're really a little bit nervous about cutting out everything, I wouldn't choose something like this because this has lots and lots of zigzags to cut, and this is a pretty tricky cutting. But if you're looking for cutting practice, if you want to get better at cutting, the best way to get better is to practice. So you could certainly practice with something like this. This would be great practice. And if you got a kit from us at the museum, you have a lot of construction paper in your kit, and you can practice doing several of these. You don't just have to do one of them. You could do 2 or 3 of them with the construction paper that you have. All right, so that would be my first piece right there. That would be my background or my outside piece. So the first thing I do is go ahead and glue this down. So I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to just add glue to the back. So I'm always starting with my outside piece. It helps make sure that everything is going to line up. If you try to start with your inside pieces, you're going to have a really hard time getting everything to line up. All right, so again, I want to make sure it lines up at the top and it lines up at the bottom and all down the edge. I shouldn't see black paper peeking out. If I do, then I need to adjust it a little bit. And I do see some here, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of adjusting. I'm going to carefully pull this up. When you're working with glue sticks, you do have a minute or two to rearrange things. You can pull it up and put it back down before the glue is dry. Okay. So I might have a little bit of black peeking out right there, but it's lined up good at the top and the bottom, so I'm going to go with that. Okay. So this part would go inside. I'm going to go ahead and cut out my neck shape. You could also do it this way where you only cut one shape out at a time, if that's easier for you too. So I just cut out my neck shape right there. And I'm going to go ahead and glue down this one that I just cut out. So I'm going to put glue on this side and then flip it over. I'll line it up, and then I'll put glue on the top. Just like that. And then I'm going to flip it over like this. And I'm going to line it up, matching the corners here and matching the corners there. Get those corners matched. For this to work, you have to make sure that those points line up with each other. All right, so this is where that part would go. I'm going to cut out my next shape now, because I still have another one. Okay. All right, so this would go in here, and then this piece would go in here. I'm going to go ahead and glue my next piece, which would be this one. So I'm going to put glue right here and then flip it over. Glue. Just like that. And then I'm going to flip it over. Make sure I'm matching my edges. Match those points right there. Match the points at the bottom. Press it down, just like that. And then I've got one more little piece to match up this time. So I've got that center piece right there. I've already cut it. Just gonna add a little glue to it. And I'm going to flip it over, just like that. And match up my edges. That almost makes a little heart right there. Whoops, I moved it around a little. So just make sure that those edges match up. You can push it around with your fingers. There we go. And now we have a sunshine shape. Again, if we divide it in half down the middle, down this line that we've created, it's the same on the left as it is on the right. Now, the last thing I would do with this is take my eraser and get rid of any of those pencil marks that I can see, which there are a few, just like that. And there we go. So now you have a design, a symmetrical design that you can upload to me or take a photograph and send to me of your artwork. All of these are examples. I just want to go over them one more time. So it could be something really simple, just like this. You can see something simple just like this. Or it can be something a little bit more complex, like this one you see here. Or even more complex or even more complex. So it can get as hard as you want it to get. You could keep cutting out pieces and flipping them, or it could be as simple as just that very first one that we did. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. And I'm just going to talk to you for just a second. Hold on one second. Okay. All right. So before we finish up for today and I open it up to be able to ask you any questions, I want to remind you to please take a photograph of your symmetrical design. Take a nice photograph that has good amount of light on it. So make sure you're in a well-lit room and that your camera is facing straight toward your design when you take that photograph. You don't want to take it at an angle. You want to take a straight, very straight photograph if you can, and email that to me. We have next month when we meet, we're going to be starting on our last project of Afternoon Art Club for October, November, and December. And so we'll have one more project. We're not going to be working on symmetry next time when we meet together. We're going to be working on something completely new. So I hope you'll be excited to join us for our last Afternoon Art Club session of this series. If you have questions about this, you can stay on our call and I'll give you a second. I know I'm still recording right now. I'll give you a second to answer questions in just a few moments. So just hang tight with me. But please remember to finish your artwork and send me a photograph. And for those of you who are watching the recording of this, please make sure that if you have any questions, you send those to me by email. So I'm going to say goodbye to my video friends. And then for those of you who are on the call live with me, hang tight and we will answer questions. Let me stop the recording.